The grand arrival. The massive hangar on the planet Xerinth buzzed with excitement. Today was a special day. The Xerinthians, known across the galaxy for their advanced technology, were about to showcase their newest battle mechs. These machines were their pride, towering giants of metal and power, designed to crush any enemy foolish enough to challenge them. Commander Kythin stood tall, his emerald-green skin glowing under the bright lights of the hangar. His golden eyes scanned the massive machines lined up before him. Each mech was at least 50 feet tall, armed with the deadliest weapons the galaxy had ever seen. Their armor was impenetrable, their speed unmatched. Kythin allowed himself a proud smile. Surely, no other race could match the brilliance of Xerinthian engineering. But today was not just about showing off. It was a demonstration meant to remind the humans of Earth about Xerinthian power. Humans were new to the galactic community, and though they were respected for their intelligence and resilience, they were still seen as a young, inexperienced race. Kythin had heard stories about them, creatures of flesh and bone who survived on a dangerous world called Earth, a place filled with deadly beasts and harsh environments. Yet despite these challenges, humans had reached the stars. As the hangar doors creaked open, Kythin turned to see the human delegation enter. 4 of them, dressed in sleek black suits that contrasted with their pale skin and colorful eyes. Their leader, Captain Harris, walked at the front, his sharp eyes scanning the room with curiosity and excitement. Unlike most races that visited Xerinth, the humans did not look afraid. Instead, they looked eager. Kythin's second-in-command, General Varric, stepped forward, his voice loud and confident. "Welcome, humans, to Xerinth's Hall of Power. Here we present to you our most advanced battle mechs, each one a masterpiece of destruction and defense." The humans' eyes widened as they looked up at the towering machines. Their jaws dropped slightly, and Kythin felt a surge of pride. Of course, they would be impressed. The Xerinthian mechs were unlike anything humans could have imagined. Even the most powerful weapons of Earth would look like toys compared to these giants. Captain Harris stepped closer to one of the mechs, his fingers lightly brushing the cold metal. He looked up, his neck craning as he tried to take in the full height of the machine. "These are incredible," he whispered, his voice filled with awe. Varric grinned, his sharp teeth gleaming. "Indeed, they are the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. Each mech is equipped with plasma cannons that can destroy a city in seconds. Their armor is reinforced with Xerinthian alloy, making them nearly indestructible. And their speed, unmatched." The humans exchanged glances, their faces lighting up with excitement. But to Kythin's surprise, they didn't look intimidated. They looked curious, almost playful. One of the humans, a young woman with short brown hair, turned to Captain Harris and whispered something. Harris's eyes sparkled with mischief as he listened, then nodded. He looked up at Kythin, his expression serious, but his lips twitching with a barely hidden smile. "These mechs," Harris began, his voice calm and respectful, "they're obviously built for battle. But are they fast?" Kythin blinked, momentarily thrown off. "Fast. They are built for combat efficiency and tactical superiority. Their speed is unmatched by any known military vehicle." Harris's smile grew wider. "Yes, but how fast exactly? Could they, say, race?" The question hung in the air, echoing through the massive hangar. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then, murmurs broke out among the Xerinthian soldiers. Race? These were battle mechs, not toys. What kind of question was that? General Varric looked offended, his eyes narrowing. "Race? These are machines of war, built to conquer, to destroy. They are not meant for games." But Harris didn't back down. In fact, his grin only grew wider. "Well, we humans like to push things to their limits, whether it's cars, planes, or starships. If it moves, we race it. And I can't help but wonder just how fast these mechs can go." Kythin stared at the human captain, Unsure whether to feel insulted or intrigued. No one had ever thought of racing the battle mechs before. They were designed for war, for power, for victory. But racing? The idea was absurd. And yet there was a spark in Harris's eyes, a challenge that was hard to ignore. Harris turned to his team, his excitement contagious. Can you imagine it? Raking these beasts across a battlefield, jumping over obstacles, dodging laser blasts, pushing them to their limits. His team nodded eagerly, their faces lighting up with anticipation. They didn't see these mechs as weapons of destruction. They saw them as the ultimate racing machines. Kethen's mind spun. Could these humans be serious? Were they really suggesting a race? He looked back at his mechs, his pride and joy, his unbreakable warriors. And then he looked at the humans, their eyes gleaming with excitement, their faces full of energy and curiosity. The idea was ridiculous, insulting even, but it was also interesting. No one had ever challenged the Xarinthians like this before. No one had ever looked at their greatest weapons and thought of racing them. Kethen felt a strange sensation deep within him, a spark of curiosity, a whisper of excitement. Perhaps, just perhaps, this race could be more than just a game. It could be a test of power, of speed, of superiority. He looked back at Captain Harris, his golden eyes narrowing. You wish to race our battle mechs? Harris's grin was pure mischief. Yes, if you're up for the challenge. Kethen's heart raced. He didn't know what the humans were planning. But one thing was certain. This was going to be interesting. A tense silence filled the hangar. The Xarinthian soldiers exchanged confused glances, their faces a mix of shock and disbelief. No one had ever dared to suggest such a thing. Race the battle mechs. It was absurd. It was disrespectful. It was intriguing. Commander Kythen's golden eyes fixed on Captain Harris. He studied the human's face, searching for signs of mockery or deception. But all he saw was excitement and a playful challenge. Did these humans truly believe they could compete with the Xarinthians, or were they simply underestimating the power of the mechs? General Varric growled, his voice low and threatening. You dare insult our warriors by suggesting they are mere playthings. These mechs are built for destruction, not childish games. But Harris didn't flinch. He met Varric's fierce gaze with calm confidence. With all due respect, General, we're not insulting them. In fact, we're impressed. These machines are magnificent. But we humans, we have a habit of pushing limits. We want to see just how powerful they really are. Varric's eyes narrowed, his body tense with anger. He took a step forward, his fists clenched, but Kethen held up a hand, stopping him. There was something about these humans that intrigued him. Their courage, their curiosity, their audacity. Kethen's lips curled into a sly smile. You believe you can handle our battle mechs, that you can compete with us in a race. Harris's eyes sparkled with mischief. We can handle anything. The question is, are you ready to be beaten? A shocked gasp echoed through the hangar. The Xarinthian soldiers stared at the humans, their faces a mixture of anger and disbelief. Beaten by humans? Impossible. Varric's face turned a deep shade of purple, his fury barely contained. You dare to challenge us? You whose technology is primitive compared to ours. This is madness. Harris shrugged, his expression calm and relaxed. Maybe, or maybe, you're just afraid to lose. Varric roared, his powerful voice shaking the metal walls of the hangar. We fear nothing, especially not you weaklings. He turned to Kethen, his eyes blazing with fury. Commander, allow me to teach these insolent creatures a lesson. Let me show them the power of Xarinthian might. Kethen looked at Varric, then back at the humans. A slow grin spread across his face. This was more than just a challenge. It was an opportunity to prove, once and for all, that Xarinthians were superior in every way. Not just in battle, but in speed, in control, in mastery. He turned to Harris, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Very well, Captain. We accept your challenge." The hangar erupted in shocked murmurs. Varek's eyes widened in surprise. "Commander, you can't be serious." Kythen's voice was firm and commanding. "I am very serious. These humans think they can compete with us. Let them try. Let them see the power of Cerinthian engineering. And when we crush them, they will never again question our superiority." Varek's anger faded, replaced with a cruel smile. "Yes, yes, Commander. We will show them. They will regret their arrogance." Kythen nodded, his eyes never leaving Harris's face. 3 days from now, we will hold the race in the Valley of Shadows. It is a treacherous terrain, full of obstacles and dangers. The perfect place to test your limits. Harris's grin didn't falter. "Sounds perfect. We wouldn't want it to be too easy." Kythen raised an eyebrow. "You do realize that no outsider has ever crossed the Valley of Shadows and survived?" Harris's eyes gleamed with excitement. "Then it's about time someone did." Kythen felt a chill run down his spine. There was something strange about this human. A boldness, a fearlessness, perhaps even a hint of madness. But no matter. In 3 days, he would watch these foolish creatures be crushed by the very machines they dared to challenge. He turned to his soldiers, his voice echoing through the hangar. "Prepare the Mechs. We will show these humans the true power of Exarinthian might." The soldiers saluted, their faces fierce with determination. As they rushed to ready the battle Mechs, Kythen looked back at Harris one last time. The human was smiling, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "You may have courage, human," Kythen said coldly, "but courage alone will not save you." Harris's grin widened. "We'll see about that." Kythen turned and marched out of the hangar, his heart pounding with excitement and fury. These humans were unlike any race he had ever encountered. Reckless, bold, and utterly fearless. But soon, they would learn the price of their arrogance. Because in the Valley of Shadows, there was no mercy, only victory or death. The humans were given access to the Cerinthian hangar, where the battle mechs stood tall and imposing. Each machine was a masterpiece of engineering, towering over the humans with sleek armor and glowing energy cores. Their weapons were deactivated, but their sheer size and power were enough to inspire fear and awe. Captain Harris walked among the mechs, his eyes wide with admiration. His team followed, their faces a mix of excitement and nervousness. Lieutenant Parker whistled low. "These things are monsters. Are we seriously going to race them?" Harris's lips curled into a confident smile. "Not just race them, Parker. We're going to beat them." Parker stared at him, eyes wide with disbelief. "You're joking, right? These machines are decades ahead of our tech. There's no way we can win." Harris's eyes sparkled with determination. "Maybe. But we've got something they don't." Parker frowned. "And what's that?" Harris tapped his forehead. "Ingenuity. Creativity. We think outside the box. These Cerinthians rely too much on their technology. They're powerful, sure, but they're predictable." Parker's frown deepened. "I don't follow." Harris's grin widened. "Just wait. You'll see." Meanwhile, on the other side of the hangar, Commander Kythen watched the humans with narrowed eyes. He stood with General Varek, who was seething with anger. "I don't trust them," Varek growled. "They're up to something." Kythen's gaze remained fixed on Harris. "Of course they are. That's why we need to watch them closely. Let them play their little games. It won't matter. In the end, our mechs will crush them." Varek's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Yes, and they will learn the price of their arrogance." Kythen nodded, but his eyes were cold and calculating. He knew there was more to these humans than met the eye. They were clever, resourceful, and far too confident. They were hiding something, but what? As the Cerinthian engineers prepared the mechs for the race, the humans huddled together, whispering in low voices. Harris pulled out a small device, no larger than a coin, and showed it to his team. Parker's eyes widened. Is that? Harris nodded. A signal disruptor. State of the art. It can interfere with the Mechs communication systems, just enough to create a distraction. Parker looked worried. Are you sure this is a good idea? If they catch us, they won't. Harris interrupted. We're not using it to cheat, just to level the playing field. We need every advantage we can get. Parker hesitated, then nodded. All right. What's the plan? Harris's eyes gleamed with excitement. Simple. We split up. Parker, you and Jenkins distract the guards. Lopes and I will get close enough to plant the disruptors on the Mechs. If we time it right, they won't even know what hit them. Parker let out a low whistle. You're crazy, Captain. Absolutely crazy. Harris laughed. That's why this is going to work. Meanwhile, Kython continued to watch the humans, his instincts screaming that something was off. He turned to Varric. Double the guards. I don't trust these creatures. They're planning something, and I want to know what. Varric saluted. Yes, Commander. He marched off to carry out the orders, his face set in a fierce scowl. Kython's golden eyes narrowed as he watched Harris laugh and joke with his team. What are you up to, human? What tricks are you planning? He didn't know, but he intended to find out. The humans moved with practiced ease, slipping past the guards and planting the disruptors on the Mechs. Their movements were quick and precise, like shadows dancing in the dark. They knew they were playing a dangerous game, but they were confident in their skills. Harris placed the final disruptor and stepped back, admiring his work. Perfect. They'll never see it coming. But as he turned to leave, he felt a cold chill run down his spine. He looked up and saw Commander Kython watching him from above, his golden eyes gleaming with suspicion. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, time seemed to stand still. Harris's heart raced, but he forced himself to remain calm. He gave Kython a casual salute and walked away, his face a mask of confidence. But inside, he was shaken. He knew Kython was no fool. The commander was watching them closely, and any mistake could cost them the race, or worse. As the humans regrouped and made their way back to their quarters, Harris couldn't shake the feeling that Kython was one step ahead of them. The race was just 2 days away, and the stakes were higher than ever. The day of the race had arrived, and the Cerinthian Stadium was filled with spectators from all over the galaxy. Towering stands surrounded the massive track, which was lined with obstacles, steep turns, and dangerous terrain designed to test the skills of the best pilots. The crowd buzzed with excitement, their anticipation palpable as they waited to witness the contest between the legendary Cerinthian Mechs and the daring human challengers. Commander Kython stood on the viewing platform, his golden eyes scanning the arena. He felt a surge of pride as his battle Mechs marched into the stadium, their metallic feet shaking the ground with each step. They gleamed under the light, their armor polished to perfection, their weapons deactivated but still imposing. They were the pinnacle of Cerinthian engineering, designed for war. And they were about to race. The human team entered next, led by Captain Harris. The crowd went silent, eyes widening as they took in the sight of the small, seemingly fragile human machines. Compared to the towering Cerinthian Mechs, the human racers looked unimpressive, almost primitive. Some of the spectators laughed. Others whispered in confusion. How could these tiny machines possibly compete against the giants of Cerinthia? General Varric sneered. They're fools. This race will be over before it even begins. Kython's eyes narrowed. Don't be so sure. These humans are cunning. Watch them closely. Harris met Kython's gaze from across the stadium and gave him a confident nod. Kython felt a chill run down his spine. What was this human planning? How could he look so confident when defeat was certain? The announcer's voice echoed through the stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, beings of all species, welcome to the Grand Mech Race. Today, we witness history as the Cerinthian champions faced the challengers from Earth. The crowd roared with excitement. Bets were placed, cheers filled the air, and the tension grew as the racers moved to their starting positions. The Cerinthian mechs stood tall and proud, their pilots calm and focused. The humans' machines were smaller but sleek, built for speed and agility. Harris climbed into his cockpit, his heart pounding with anticipation. Lieutenant Parker's voice came through the comms. "I still can't believe we're doing this. Are you sure the disruptors will work?" Harris's fingers danced over the controls, running final checks. "They'll work, but we're not relying on them. Remember, speed and agility. Stick to the plan. And we got this." Parker's nervous laugh crackled through the comms. "Easy for you to say. You're not the one facing that giant metal monster in the first lap." Harris grinned. "Relax, Parker. Just think of it as a walk in the park, with giant death machines chasing you." Parker groaned. "Great, thanks for that." The countdown began. The entire stadium fell silent, holding its breath as the numbers flashed on the massive screen. 3, 2, 1, go. The starting siren blared, and the race began. The Cerinthian mechs surged forward, their powerful engines roaring as they charged down the track. The ground shook beneath their weight, and dust flew into the air. They moved with precision, their massive frames surprisingly agile as they navigated the sharp turns and obstacles. The human racers shot forward, their smaller machines zipping between the Cerinthian giants with incredible speed. They moved like lightning, darting around corners and slipping through narrow gaps. The Cerinthian pilots were taken off guard, their massive mechs struggling to keep up with the humans' agility. Commander Kythan's eyes widened. "Impossible. How are they so fast?" Varric's face twisted with anger. "It's just luck. They can't keep up that speed for long. Our mechs will crush them." But the humans were just getting started. Harris led the pack, his machine weaving through the obstacles with ease. He pushed the engine to its limits, feeling the rush of speed as he passed 2 Cerinthian mechs. He could feel the eyes of the galaxy on him, the shock and disbelief spreading through the crowd. The Cerinthian pilots fought back, their powerful mechs firing thrusters to close the gap. They were relentless, their massive arms smashing through barriers and clearing the path. One mech swung its arm at Harris, trying to knock him off the track. Harris ducked just in time, his machine spinning out of the way before rocketing forward again. Parker's voice crackled through the comms. "That was close. These guys aren't playing around." Harris's eyes narrowed. "Neither are we. Stay focused. This is only the first lap." From the viewing platform, Kythan watched with growing suspicion. The humans were performing far better than expected. Their machines were faster, more agile, and their maneuvers were flawless. It didn't make sense. How could such primitive technology compete with Cerinthian mechs? Then Kythan noticed something strange. A faint, flickering distortion around one of the mechs, just for a second, but enough to catch his attention. His eyes widened. "Varric, scan for signal interference. They're using some kind of device." Varric's eyes went wide with shock. "They're cheating." Kythan's expression hardened. "No, they're leveling the playing field. But they underestimated us. Activate the countermeasures." Varric grinned with pleasure. Down on the track, Harris felt a cold chill run down his spine. A warning light flashed on his console, followed by a loud beeping sound. Parker's panicked voice came through the comms. "Captain, they've detected the disruptors. They're jamming our signals." Harris's heart raced. He looked at the screen as his controls flickered. The Cerinthians had found their trick, and they weren't playing fair anymore. But Harris was ready. His eyes narrowed with determination. "All right, Plan B. Let's show them what humans can really do." The race was far from over, and the humans were just getting started. The day of the race had arrived, and the Cerinthian stadium was filled with spectators from all over the galaxy. Towering stands surrounded the massive track, which was lined with obstacles, steep turns, and dangerous terrain designed to test the skills of the best pilots. The crowd buzzed with excitement, their anticipation palpable as they waited to witness the contest between the legendary Cerinthian Mechs and the daring human challengers. Commander Kython stood on the viewing platform, his golden eyes scanning the arena. He felt a surge of pride as his battle mechs marched into the stadium, their metallic feet shaking the ground with each step. They gleamed under the light, their armor polished to perfection, their weapons deactivated but still imposing. They were the pinnacle of Cerinthian engineering, designed for war. And they were about to race. The human team entered next, led by Captain Harris. The crowd went silent, eyes widening as they took in the sight of the small, seemingly fragile human machines. Compared to the towering Cerinthian mechs, the human racers looked unimpressive, almost primitive. Some of the spectators laughed. Others whispered in confusion. How could these tiny machines possibly compete against the giants of Cerinthia? General Varric sneered. They're fools. This race will be over before it even begins. Kython's eyes narrowed. Don't be so sure. These humans are cunning. Watch them closely. Harris met Kython's gaze from across the stadium and gave him a confident nod. Kython felt a chill run down his spine. What was this human planning? How could he look so confident when defeat was certain? The announcer's voice echoed through the stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, beings of all species, welcome to the Grand Mech Race. Today, we witness history as the Cerinthian champions faced the challengers from Earth. The crowd roared with excitement. Bets were placed, cheers filled the air, and the tension grew as the racers moved to their starting positions. The Cerinthian mechs stood tall and proud, their pilots calm and focused. The humans' machines were smaller but sleek, built for speed and agility. Harris climbed into his cockpit, his heart pounding with anticipation. Lieutenant Parker's voice came through the comms. I still can't believe we're doing this. Are you sure the disruptors will work? Harris's fingers danced over the controls, running final checks. They'll work, but we're not relying on them. Remember, speed and agility. Stick to the plan, and we've got this. Parker's nervous laugh crackled through the comms. Easy for you to say. You're not the one facing a giant metal monster in the first lap. Harris grinned. Relax, Parker. Just think of it as a walk in the park, with giant death machines chasing you. Parker groaned. Great, thanks for that. The countdown began. The entire stadium fell silent, holding its breath as the numbers flashed on the massive screen. 3, 2, 1, go. The starting siren blared, and the race began. The Cerinthian mechs surged forward, their powerful engines roaring as they charged down the track. The ground shook beneath their weight, and dust flew into the air. They moved with precision, their massive frames surprisingly agile as they navigated the sharp turns and obstacles. The human racers shot forward, their smaller machines zipping between the Cerinthian giants with incredible speed. They moved like lightning, darting around corners and slipping through narrow gaps. The Cerinthian pilots were taken off guard, their massive mechs struggling to keep up with the humans' agility. Commander Kython's eyes widened. Impossible. How are they so fast? Varric's face twisted with anger. It's just luck. They can't keep up that speed for long. Our mechs will crush them. But the humans were just getting started. Harris led the pack, his machine weaving through the obstacles with ease. He pushed the engine to its limits, feeling the rush of speed as he passed 2 Cerinthian mechs. He could feel the eyes of the galaxy on him, the shock and disbelief spreading through the crowd. The Cerinthian pilots fought back, their powerful mechs firing thrusters to close the gap. They were relentless, their massive arms smashing through barriers and clearing the path. One mech swung its arm at Harris, trying to knock him off the track. Harris ducked just in time, his machine spinning out of the way before rocketing forward again. Parker's voice crackled through the comms. That was close. These guys aren't playing around. Harris's eyes narrowed. Neither are we. Stay focused. This is only the first lap. From the viewing platform, Kython watched with growing suspicion. The humans were performing far better than expected. Their machines were faster, more agile, and their maneuvers were flawless. It didn't make sense. How could such primitive technology compete with Cerinthian mechs? Then, Kython noticed something strange. A faint, flickering distortion around one of the mechs. Just for a second, but enough to catch his attention. His eyes widened. Varric, scan for signal interference. They're using some kind of device. Varric's eyes went wide with shock. They're cheating. Kython's expression hardened. No, they're leveling the playing field. But they underestimated us. Activate the countermeasures. Varric grinned, with pleasure. Down on the track, Harris felt a cold chill run down his spine. A warning light flashed on his console, followed by a loud beeping sound. Parker's panicked voice came through the comms. "Captain, they've detected the disruptors. They're jamming our signals." Harris's heart raced. He looked at the screen as his controls flickered. The Cerinthians had found their trick, and they weren't playing fair anymore. But Harris was ready. His eyes narrowed with determination. "All right, Plan B. Let's show them what humans can really do." The race was far from over, and the humans were just getting started. The race was nearing its final stages, and the pressure was intense. The Cerinthian mechs roared with fury, their engines blazing as they tried to close the distance. Their pilots were furious, humiliated by the humans' defiance. They were no longer just racing. They were hunting, determined to crush the challengers who dared to stand against them. Commander Kython's voice crackled through the Cerinthian comms. "Enough games. End this. Show them the true power of Cerinthian engineering." The Cerinthian mechs responded with ruthless precision. Their targeting systems locked onto the human racers, calculating every move. Their strategy was simple: overwhelm with power and crush them with force. Captain Harris felt the shift immediately. His radar lit up with danger signals as the Cerinthians coordinated their attack. They were no longer racing to win. They were racing to destroy. "They're coming in hard." Lieutenant Parker shouted over the comms, his voice tense. "They're not holding back anymore." Harris's eyes were sharp, his mind racing. "Stay together. They're trying to pick us off one by one. We move as a unit." The humans tightened their formation, their racers weaving through the treacherous track with flawless coordination. The Cerinthians followed, their massive frames bulldozing through obstacles, clearing a path with sheer force. But the humans were ready. Harris had been waiting for this moment. He knew that the Cerinthians relied on their strength and size, but those very traits made them predictable. "Break formation. Now," Harris commanded. His team split off in different directions, their racers darting like lightning bolts. The Cerinthians hesitated, momentarily confused by the sudden change. Their bulky mechs struggled to adapt, their heavy frames unable to turn quickly enough. One Cerinthian pilot cursed as he lost sight of his target. Where did they go? Another mech swung around, narrowly missing Parker's machine as it zipped by, its smaller size giving it incredible agility. "They're too fast," a Cerinthian shouted, his frustration echoing through the comms. "I can't lock on." The crowd watched in awe as the humans danced around the giants, their movements graceful and precise. They were not just surviving. They were outmaneuvering their opponents. General Varric's fists slammed against the railing. "This is unacceptable. Crush them." But Kython watched in silence, his eyes narrowing as he began to understand. The humans were not just skilled pilots. They were tacticians. They were using the Cerinthians' own strength against them. Harris's voice was calm, his mind focused. "They're confused. Keep them guessing. Use the terrain to your advantage." The racers weaved through narrow passages, ducked under fallen debris, and leaped over broken sections of the track. The Cerinthians tried to follow but struggled with the tight spaces and uneven terrain. Their powerful mechs were too large, too rigid. Lieutenant Parker's laughter echoed through the comms. They can't keep up. We're running circles around them. Harris allowed himself a small smile. Don't get cocky. They're still dangerous. One mistake, and it's over. But even as he spoke, the Xerinthians grew desperate. They activated their heavy weapons, firing energy blasts that shattered the track, sending shockwaves that rattled the human racers. Parker swerved to avoid a blast, his machine wobbling dangerously. They're destroying the course. How are we supposed to finish the race if there's no track left? Harris's eyes narrowed. They're trying to force us to slow down. If we hesitate, they'll catch us. Keep pushing forward. The humans raced through the chaos, dodging debris and navigating the crumbling track. Their speed was incredible, their reflexes unmatched. But the Xerinthians were relentless, their fury driving them to fight harder. One of the Xerinthian mechs powered forward, its thrusters roaring as it aimed for Harris. The giant machine charged with terrifying speed, its massive fist raised to crush him. Harris's heart raced. He could feel the ground shaking beneath him, the roar of the engines deafening. There was no way to dodge, but he didn't need to. Now, he shouted. His team fired their thrusters simultaneously, their racers shooting forward in a burst of speed. They passed under the Xerinthian's raised arm, narrowly avoiding the crushing blow. The giant mech stumbled, its momentum carrying it forward. The ground beneath it crumbled, unable to support its massive weight. With a deafening crash, the Xerinthian mech fell, its giant body breaking through the track and tumbling down into the depths below. The crowd erupted into gasps and cheers, stunned by the daring maneuver. One of the giants had fallen, defeated not by power, but by speed and strategy. General Varick's face twisted in shock. Impossible. How could they? But Commander Kythan's expression was grim. He understood now. The humans were more than just clever pilots. They were warriors who thrived under pressure, who adapted to any challenge. They're not running, Kythan whispered. They're fighting, and they're winning. Harris didn't look back at the fallen giant. He focused on the track ahead, his determination burning stronger than ever. They wanted a race, he muttered. We'll give them a race they'll never forget. The humans sped forward, their machines blazing with energy, their spirits unbroken. They had turned the tide, but the race was far from over. The Xerinthians were down, but they were not defeated. The final showdown was coming, and Harris knew that they would need more than just speed to win. They would need courage, strategy, and the unbreakable will of humanity. The finish line was in sight, glowing brightly at the end of the treacherous track. But victory was far from guaranteed. The Xerinthians were closing in, their remaining mechs roaring with fury and desperation. They refused to accept defeat. Commander Kythan's voice thundered through the Xerinthian comms. No more games. Use everything. Obliterate them. The Xerinthian mechs unleashed their full power, activating hidden weaponry. Cannons emerged from their shoulders, launching energy blasts that shattered the track. Missiles screamed through the air, exploding dangerously close to the human racers. Captain Harris's eyes widened as debris rained down. The Xerinthians were destroying the course, turning it into a war zone. He gritted his teeth. They're not playing fair anymore. Lieutenant Parker's voice was tense. They're trying to bury us before we reach the finish line. Harris's mind raced, analyzing the situation. The Xerinthians were desperate, willing to destroy everything just to stop them. But that desperation was also their weakness. It made them reckless. They're out of control, Harris realized. If we can just hold on, they'll destroy themselves. But holding on was easier said than done. The track was collapsing around them, explosions echoing as the Xerinthians fired relentlessly. The human racers weaved through the chaos, their agility keeping them just out of reach. The crowd was on the edge of their seats, watching in stunned silence as the humans danced through the battlefield. their machines moving with unmatched precision. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving under pressure. General Varick's face twisted with rage. "End this. Crush them." But Kythen's expression was cold and calculating. He watched as his own pilots grew frantic, their anger clouding their judgment. "They're losing control," he muttered, realizing the flaw in Varick's strategy. "They're fighting with rage, not skill." Harris knew it too. He could feel the shift, the Xarinthians growing more reckless with every attack. It was time to turn the tide. "Team, on me," Harris commanded. "We take the offensive." His squadron fell into formation, their racers aligning perfectly. They weaved through the crumbling track, dodging debris and countering the Xarinthians' attacks with incredible precision. Harris led the charge, his engines roaring as he pushed his machine to the limit. He dodged an energy blast, leaped over a collapsing platform, and charged straight at the nearest Xarinthian mech. The alien pilot's eyes widened in shock. "He's coming right at me." Before the Xarinthian could react, Harris spun his racer, using its smaller size and agility to slide under the mech's legs. He fired his thrusters, shooting upward and knocking the mech off balance. The giant machine stumbled, its heavy frame toppling over. It crashed into another Xarinthian mech, the two machines collapsing in a tangled heap. The crowd erupted into cheers, their disbelief turning into excitement. The humans were fighting back, and they were winning. One by one, the human racers targeted the Xarinthian mechs, exploiting their size and lack of agility. They moved like a coordinated unit, anticipating each other's moves, covering each other's weaknesses. Lieutenant Parker laughed as he outmaneuvered another Xarinthian. "They can't keep up. They're falling apart." Harris's eyes were fierce. "Keep pushing. Don't let up." The Xarinthians grew desperate, their attacks becoming wild and uncoordinated. Their own firepower tore through the track, sending debris flying. In their rage, they were destroying themselves. One Xarinthian pilot screamed in frustration as his own missile ricocheted off debris, exploding against his mech's armor. His machine staggered before collapsing, defeated by his own recklessness. Commander Kythen watched in horror as his elite pilots fell one by one. This can't be happening." General Varick was speechless, his mouth hanging open as the humans raced toward the finish line. "They're winning." With the Xarinthians defeated, the path to victory was clear. The humans surged forward, their machines blazing with energy as they sped toward the glowing finish line. Captain Harris's heart raced, his eyes locked on the prize. "We're almost there. Push it to the limit." The human racers fired their thrusters, their machines roaring as they crossed the finish line in a flash of light. The crowd exploded into cheers, their applause echoing through the arena. They had done it. Against all odds, the humans had won. They had not just survived, they had conquered. As the racers slowed to a stop, they were surrounded by stunned onlookers, aliens from countless worlds staring in awe. No one had expected them to win, least of all the Xarinthians. General Varick's fists trembled with rage. "This is impossible. They were supposed to be inferior." But Commander Kythen's anger was replaced by something else: respect. He watched as Captain Harris climbed out of his machine, standing tall and proud, his team gathered around him. They weren't just racing, Kythen realized. They were fighting for their place in the galaxy. And they earned it. The human racers stood victorious, their machines gleaming under the arena lights. They had faced the galaxy's most advanced mechs, defied impossible odds, and emerged triumphant. Captain Harris looked up at the Xarinthian command box, his eyes locking with Kythen's. There was no arrogance in his gaze, only determination. "We're here to stay," Harris' expression said without words. "And we're just getting started." The galaxy would never forget this day. The day humanity proved its worth, not through power or technology, but through courage, strategy, and the unbreakable will to fight. They had raced against giants and won. They had shown the universe what it truly meant to be human. The end.